which is kind of quite a good look. So it's darn it. I blew it again. Uh,
That was a bit of an anticlimax. Um, yeah, hi all. Glad
yeah.
you can make it for another Freedom Friday, wherever you are, in the world. Yeah, I'm going to be delivering on history. I'm going to give people a little bit of a very, obviously there's a lot to our history, but I'm going to give a bit of an overview of how um, history has been used in a way to subvert our minds and to have us um, sort of living in a kind of a false reality, if you like, because history is extremely important to what's happening in the present. And hopefully, by the end of the presentation, you'll see why that is. So, I'm just, without any further ado, I'm going to share my screen. Bear with me while I get it up and just have to fiddle around a bit here with the buttons. So, can you see that, Gerald? Is that hopefully everyone can see that? Start the slideshow. So, what has history got to do with now? Conventional history has created the timeline to the present day. Because the story of history has shaped our world paradigm and created the matrix with the financial, religious, and legal systems as its main pillars. So basically, that's saying that obviously we are the product, we're the end product of our history. Collectively and individually, we are living history now. But obviously, there's a story to humanity and how we got here. And I'm going to present a discussion that maybe it's not been true history. And furthermore, by decoding history correctly, we get to change the timeline into the future because this will truly allow people to know themselves, which will unleash a huge wave of light consciousness, i.e., that will break the spell, which means we move forward to the golden age as prophesied by practically every ancestral tribe and community that has basically ever been on the earth. So, the key systems, science, and history. So, the key systems that you will see recurring as a theme throughout history is economics, law, or the legal system, and religion. Really, when you look at history, as you delve into history, you see these key pillars or this key trinity actually of history coming up time and time again. The big stories about the Christian Crusades and the Roman times and the law and the rise and falls of civilizations and empires and how the economic system was at the heart of it. in those days, actually, war was a big part of conquering and conquest. Was how they got a lot of their how they built their empires, and they pillaged the gold and the silver and the jewels and all of that. So yeah, so economics to me is really paired very closely to law, because the law is there to protect the economic system, and religion, the church, has basically run and controlled the law and controlled the economy throughout ages. When you go back, right back into history, that's how it's been. And as I say, these are all interrelated to all the sciences, because science is what shapes our, that's what creates the foundation for our life. As I said, war is very interrelated, because they use war to basically pilfer more money. And politics is obviously, politics is the way that the economic system, the legal system, and the religious system is basically shielded to a point, and also the way it's presented, if you like. It's the PR machine with the media to how it's sold to us in many ways. And then, of course, education, which is essentially the delivery mechanism of history. So education is the system which taught history. And when you look at all the subjects in our school, almost all of them have a reference to history, because language, um, mathematics, the sciences, art, geography, all of these have a very strong relation and correlation to history. It's just that what is taught now is an extremely watered down, highly. It's just a shadow of what it's truly all about. So in history, yeah, there's a lot of fallacies and inversions that have been presented to us through our education system and through our political system and the other systems. Like science, the basis of our world is really based on Darwinism and Newtonian physics. These are the mainstream sciences that underpin our worldview. So when our worldview or our paradigm view is in a certain way, that is very cemented. That's how we see the world. That becomes our belief system that really underpins virtually everything else. If the world paradigm changes, then the whole society will change, and that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing that transition now into a potential new worldview is coming, and some people are starting to see that now. They're starting to see the early stages of a whole new worldview, and a worldview also means a different self view. And it basically says that Darwinism and those conventional sciences basically says that we evolved from monkeys, and that everything is physical matter. Everything happens in a linear fashion, survival of the fittest. So with that kind of mentality, you can see how the world has totally gone down that track. It is the survival of the fittest, and really not all along not knowing that actually the whole it's basically been engineered that way. So if we see everything as physical matter, energy is taken out of the equation, we will never be able to get to the truth of who we are. If everything's happening in a linear fashion, then it's very, very three-dimensional, or even even less. It's two-dimensional, which is obviously absolutely incorrect. And the survival of the fittest, well, you see that very much in the economic system. It's like the rich are the fittest in this world, but the rich, the super rich, are the ones that are pulling the strings. And in economics, the current money system says that resources are scarce. We must work hard to get anywhere. We are being noble for being poor. Money is filthy. Tax is inevitable. And our fractional reserve banking with interest on money printing is actually the legal Ponzi. So, this is how they've created it in such a way, in a hierarchical system. So these concepts of working hard, really all that is doing is expending our energy in order that we pay more tax so that we can stay on the mouse wheel. And this concept of scarce resources, there is actually some truth in that. But if we truly unleashed our creativity, resources are not actually scarce. They're only made out to be scarce. Or if resources are running scarce, there's other very good alternatives that get suppressed. And so this is where it gets very complex. But I'm not going to go deep into it. But just you get the picture. So and with law, the legal system, it's not actually a lawful system. It's not actually a system of law that's designed to help people. It's not. It's just not. The law is there to protect the legal system, to protect the church, and to protect the whole entire Ponzi, so that it's very, very structured, and it's very, very layered, many, many layers. And the law system is a big layer, just like the economics is a big layer. But within the law system, there's many, many layers again. So it's no wonder we get lost. Originally, law used to be based on natural law, and it was actually spelt LORE, which is more about the law as in nature's law and the story of humanity, really. So law as a LAW is really man-made law, basically. And religion in the past, the priests in the church held all the power and controlled most of the resources, including the money system, as I said, and the legal system, and pretty much whatever pretty much every area of life, actually. A lot of it is very, very sort of hard to sort of pick up. It's very abstract, and it's very, very sort of woven in such a way that we kind of don't see it directly. But if you start looking, you will see it. Hang on, I'll just get my mouse. So now we go back to our origin story and knowledge. And really, our origin story has been completely subverted and inverted. I'm not saying that there were wonderful men and women as well that walked this earth that were extremely evolved. I'm not saying that, but maybe that has also been used for their own design. But if you go right back to the very, very beginning, it really started with two main beings. I mean, this is arguable. Obviously, this is my view from the research I've done. But when you delve into this deeper and deeper, like I have, there is compelling evidence that actually we were seeded, where Earth was colonized by galactic beings or intergalactic beings, and also known as the Anunnaki or the Anu. Anu was their supreme being, and Ea, or also known as Enki, represented. It's also there were, I believe, there were literal beings, but there is also a very much a metaphor aspect to them. And Enki represented the light, and Enlil, who was his brother, represented the dark. Now, this sounds very much like a Cain and Abel story to me. And the prodigal son and all of this, and you'll see it in our language. And clearly, if they came to Earth, they are here to with a specific purpose, and that is, that's a huge topic. But basically, they came here, I think, originally to mine gold. That's what they came here for, gold. So immediately there's a reference to gold, which is a reference to economies, and so that I find that very interesting. Anyway, we could say there's a battle of light and dark going on now, and it's interesting that this goes back to the very beginning. I pose a question: are our ancestors and the gods? I say gods with a little g, because these beings, these Anunnaki, installed themselves as the gods mentioned in the Bible, and it's in Genesis, where they said that we shall. Basically, they're saying made us in their image, in the God's image, not God singular, but God plural. And that's a very, very important point, because they're saying that they made us in their image in Genesis. And so are they actually extraterrestrials, or actually I call them interdimensional beings or interdimensional travelers? So basically they came from another time. They came from another time and another dimension, and they landed here maybe 200 to 400,000 years ago to colonize Earth. But I believe they have been coming and going here for millions and millions of years. So that totally throws out the conventional history story right there. So I mean, I'm not saying this is the truth, because obviously we don't know the truth. But this, to me, is a far more compelling story than the one we were given and made to swallow. And there's a lot of evidence for this, like the Sumerian cuneiform tablets that they've unearthed, thousands of these cuneiform tablets, the Epic of Gilgamesh, the King's List, what they call the King's List, where they actually had it inscribed on these tablets. These kings were living for thousands of years, and they were reigning over Earth for thousands of years. Also in the Dead Sea Scrolls, or known as the Essene, I think the Essene Scrolls, the Dead Sea Scrolls also talked about, travelers from outer space, from, other dimensions, and how we kind of lived and how the world was constructed. There was heaps of information in there. The Nag Hammadi and the Book of Enoch. The Book of Enoch got excluded from the Bible. Found that very interesting, because Enoch is talking about, and he was depicting flying craft and being giant beings and beings that could just come and go and materialize, dematerialize. So it's no wonder that got eliminated, along with many, many, many other books as well. So in the beginning, there was no religion. It was only the pursuit of knowledge, or gnosis, as they called it. And this is what science means. Science actually means truth, which is obviously the byproduct of true knowledge. And we were taught to know thyself. That was one of the primary things that they would educate people on. And so objective truth, I mean, I think one of the reasons why we're in a mess today is because objective truth or that's what real natural law is. That's what real science is. It is objective. In other words, they are universal laws and that never change. That's all it really means. There are certain things that we can measure and we can know that never change. And when you have those fully understood or understood, then you can never, everything else that's built on top of it will also be in harmony and alignment with real, true, with life, basically, and the pursuit of more life and advancing life. So the universal laws or the principles of nature, the Hermetic texts, Thoth, Noah, Zeus, Hercules, and and these so-called mythical figures, these are not just mythical figures. These are not just metaphors or analogies. There is an analogous. There is a parable in there, but I also think that this is also um, referencing real beings, but also they are referencing, like in the case of Hercules, I'm wondering whether that's actually that could be Jupiter or Saturn. So I forget which way around. Zeus could be Jupiter, and Hercules, I think, is Saturn. So they could be references to our planets and other heavenly bodies. Thoth was Hermes in an original time. Thoth was he was an advanced being from Atlantis, and then when Atlantis was destroyed, which, by the way, in these big destructive periods on Earth, this is how I believe the historians were able to cover up our very, very early history. They could cover it up by using these floods and that come on Earth very, very conveniently to wipe people's memories and history and all that sort of stuff. It's actually Thoth is where the word thought comes from, because he was the master of true thought. And I believe that Noah is actually one of the Anunnaki hybrids. They call them the Nephilim or the Watchers. And I believe Noah was a good guy. He was like, when they interbred with humans, they created the Nephilim. That was their term for a hybrid human come Anunnaki. And so we had kind of a super intelligence, but these beings had a human empathetic aspect to them. And I think a lot of this gets lost. Noah actually warned everyone there was a flood coming. He knew that flood was either, I believe it was either created or it was just a massive exploding planet. Could have been, there's a water planet called, I forget now. It could have been a collision or it could have been this exploding planet. It was a water planet that blew up. And they say that it could be how that piece of it created Earth. It's all a very fascinating. I cannot say that that's actually true or not, but it certainly makes fascinating reading, and there's a lot to it. There's a lot of evidence for it. It takes hours and hours of research to discover it all. So in the early days, like the ancient cities and temples were blueprint copies of various constellations. And this is proved by, like, the Great Pyramids of Giza is a classic example that is mirroring the Orion's belt. But they built the very earliest city is reputed to be Eridu. Eridu was at the very base of the Euphrates or the Tigris River in the in the Mesopotamia, as they called it then, or Iraq now. And at the top is Göbekli Tepe, which they've just uncovered now in Turkey, and it proves that our civilization goes back many, many tens of thousands of years. But I found it very interesting that this depiction looks like a snake, and the snake or the serpent has been depicted as evil, and I believe in the various early days it was not evil at all. It was actually a symbol of divine power, basically. And there's a little bit of script here that says the path of Ea being Earth. It also, as I say, it's a reference to Enki, begins at or after heavenly Eridu, which on Earth was the most ancient of the Sumerian cities. It's from Sumeria is where we get all this evidence of our early history through the cuneiform tablets and other scrolls and writings and statues and all sorts of things. And so in heaven, sorry, I'll say that again, which on earth was the most ancient of the Sumerian cities, in heaven, astronomically the same as the constellation Eridanus, known as the river of forgetfulness or the underworld. So they talk about this underworld, and that's where apparently Ea went. He went into the underworld. Now, so did Thoth. He also talked about going into the underworld. This is a very fascinating thing. And in the constant, a lot of the our galaxy is referred to as a river. When they talk about rivers, it's also a river of a constellation or the stars. And so, but the thing is, what I'm getting at too here is that we are a map. They are mapping. They've mapped out cities and temples based on the constellations. So this is a map of the same area. That would be the Tigris River that on that last day, and then you got the Euphrates, which is coming down here, and they meet at and you can see they meet sort of around here, around Eridu, where Eridu was. Eridu is off the river and shown in this map. This is an ancient map. But back in those days, I believe the river would have gone right past it. It's obviously changed its course. And then you can see these are where these other ancient cities were all located. You've got where my mouse is. You've got Sumer, Lagish, Umma, Uruk, Babylon, which came after Sumeria, Babylon. And then you've got up here Assyria and Akkad and all these other areas. And then over here, of course, you've got Egypt. And then in here, you've got the Israel now, this current time. And so this is the cradle of civilization. This is where they landed. This is where the concentration of Earth was for many, many thousands of years. But this was I believe, a base, and these the Nephilim and the Watchers, they spread out around the world, and they went and colonized all different countries around the world. There's a lot of proof of this, even to New Zealand, even possibly to New Zealand. There's a lot of connections with Egypt and New Zealand and the very early ancestors in New Zealand and the Pacific Islands. Then you've got the Maya, the Celts, the Native American Indians. These were all quite evolved, very evolved civilizations. And what's really fascinating is that when you really dig into history, they seem to appear much around the same time. So that's because there was a plan to colonize the whole earth. And this area was very, very fertile. It was obviously a growing belt. They had agriculture way before we were told that they had agriculture, and they had technology that was mind-blowing as well. They had machines and they had all sorts of things. Even the Great Pyramid itself is said to be a giant power plant. And so, it's on a scale of mind-blowing scale. And this is where they landed their ships. And this is where, legendary figures like Enoch and Noah and all that sort of roamed. So then looking at the Bible and the Bible's part in this, I pose a question here. Could the Bible be a rewrite of the ancient Sumerian texts put into code so that it loses its true meaning, or so that people really have to dig to find what it means? And I believe that the Bible is definitely a code, and it wasn't written around 2,000 years ago. It's a collection of writings going back right to the very beginning, but it could not be put out in plain sight, so it had to be coded. And when they say, who are the gods, as I mentioned before, they say in Genesis that we were made in the God's image, and they installed themselves as gods. And if you imagine that you were an early hominoid on Earth and these beings came down, you would see them as a type of God, even though I believe the word God has been completely misinterpreted, or actually it's been heavily bastardized. It would be not too much of a stretch to install these beings as gods. And a religion actually means to bind again. Religion, it means just to lig means, and it's got a reference there to law as well. So so that's really what, when you look at root words and you look at their meanings, it sort of gives you the true understanding of what they actually were saying. And the Christian Crusades could have been a drive to convert all people from knowledge seeking to God fearing. Witches were the healers. And so, there's all of this stuff that came out. They didn't want people to find the knowledge, because they knew if they discovered who they truly were and how the universe was constructed, then they wouldn't have any control. People would be able to just, be able to be self-governing and self-ruling. And that wasn't in the design. And I say God fearing, not God fearing, because it was about also fearing God as well as loving God. So that was immediately creating the division, was immediately creating the polarization. And this is one of the key ones, right, going back to the very basis of our society. So the Catholic Church rose to power. Eventually they rose to great power, and they are the Trinity. They ended up governing the law, and the city of London covered the world's finances, and Washington DC was the military headquarters. That this is in more later times, but that is breaking down now. That is so breaking down. But this is how they have evolved over time. So science. I say science has been divided from faith, when really to me they're two sides of the same coin. So in the earliest days, science was the pursuit of truth and knowing through knowledge. And when we look at language, numbers, geometry, biology, music, astrology, and many more, these were the sciences that were taught in the mystery schools. Plato, Archimedes, Aristotle, this is what they taught. And this is all, when you're uncovering history, you're going to come across the ancient languages and the texts, and you're going to understand mathematics, which I believe these beings brought with them. They understood mathematics, they understood geometry, and they taught the humans of the day this sort of stuff. And our biology, music, which is really the study of vibration and frequency, and astrology. Astrology is actually the key science, oh, believe it or not, because it is the biggest macro. It's the macro science. It's really the study of the whole universe. And a true scientist became an alchemist, which is essentially a mystic with knowledge. So it was a combination of the two. And the alchemists were very revered, because they could, they could turn lead into gold and that sort of thing. But the alchemy is really pointing about turning base emotions into highly evolved consciousness. That's what the alchemy was really about, is turning emotions into highly evolved kind of energy states. And then we come across the trivium, another reference to the three, the Trinity, which was the study of grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And grammar, logic, and rhetoric together make up language as we know it. So this is all about the delivery. This is all about the actual inflection, sound, accent, logic, which is all about critical thinking, and it's all related to writing, speaking, everything. Our contractual law comes from language ultimately. And the quadrivium, which was quad meaning four, this quadrivium and trivium together is what makes up the seven liberal arts, which was the basis of what schools were about. And they taught in order numbers or mathematics, geometry. Numbers is basically just the numerical representations of our grammar, of our words and letters, but it's also numerical representations of creation itself, energy, and all of that. And then you have geometry, which is actually a study of numbers in space. So by using numbers in space, we get geometrical shapes and angles. So you've got the angles, you've got the 30 degrees and the 45 degrees, the 90 degrees. The key angles are all references to, obviously, numbers. And these are also references to music, because octaves and different musical notes and octaves and all the other things in music have a numerical representation. So they call that the study of numbers in time, because obviously the music is happening in a time frame. And then the ultimate in the quadrivium sciences was astrology. The study of the constellations, the zodiac, precession of the equinoxes. I'm going to go into that a little bit more later. And so in these days, the wealthiest were actually the most knowledgeable. The ultimate science is a study in terms of energy, causes, not effects. When you're studying physical matter, you're studying the effect of something. You're looking at the end product. It's like looking at the wrong end of the stick. You've got to look at the cause to understand the effect. And it's also the study of vibrational frequency, harmonics, and quantum fields. Also other things like the torus energy, sound waves, which is really harmonics. And but it's all coming back to energy. The earliest colonizers of Earth brought mathematics, geometry, art, building knowledge, astrological knowledge, and much, much more with them. So it also so this is how and when we're told we just come from monkeys and all that, if we actually knew this was our history, we're obviously going to have a completely different view of our world and ourselves. So the zodiac is actually like a heavenly clock. It is actually measuring time, but it's measuring large large precessions of time, and particularly the precession of the equinoxes measures the galactic ages of the Earth. So the precession of the equinoxes is the position of Earth and our Sun in relation to the zodiac, and where it appears that we are moving backwards. We move backwards through the zodiac instead of from Aries to Taurus to, what's the next one? Whatever it is, I forget now. We're actually appearing to be moving backwards in relation to the zodiac because of the Earth's tilt and its wobble. So it's a bit of an illusion, but this is how they really measured where we are in time, in the age of time. So, like, each constellation has a certain consciousness which mirrors each of the 12 key areas of life. Hence, astrology is the study of human evolution through time and space. Each age is 12 times 2,100 years, which equals 24,000 years. So basically, each constellation represents, like I say, it's like these constellations are actually, they have a consciousness. They have a certain energy consciousness particular to that, particular to that set of stars. And so when the Earth is facing that way, when we're in that constellation, that's going to be the predominant theme that is being projected to Earth. So I know this is a very difficult thing to try and portray, but it is. And if you looked at life through the star signs, like Aries, they call it, Aries is the god of war, and it's but he's the initiator, and he's the creator, and he's the one who goes forth and conquers, but he's also a lover of knowledge and a seeker of wisdom and all of this. And then Taurus, which is more physical based, the lover of fine things, it's the lover of comfort and all of that sort of stuff. Gemini, I don't need to go through all these because I haven't got time, but if you go through them and you study them, they're all looking at different aspects of life and states of being, and things, everything from war down to love and humanity, communication, everything that you can actually think of, including all the physical material comforts as well. I mean, there's a place for that as well. And I find this very interesting that 24,000 years, and it is believed the Anunnaki, they also brought our clock time. Now, I know our clock time is not true time, but it is a very amazing system because, see, it's designed on this. That's why we have 24 hours in a day. It's not an accident. And we have 12 hours of day and 12 hours of night in equal when we're at the equinox. So I find that very interesting. And then they use the 60 seconds to a minute. And then 60 is a fractal of 360, which is the circumference of a circle, the degrees of a circle. So when you start, this is then where the mathematics, and it's like putting a puzzle together. And as you go into it more and more, and you look at the study of numbers and how a lot of things come back to 9, 6, and 3. It's 3, 6, and 9. That's what Tesla said. Study 3, 6, and 9, and you will understand energy, and you'll understand who you are and what energy is all about. So then we come to the economics and money. So the earliest form of true money was gold. It was always gold. Gold was used alchemically. It was used for health. They would pour their water over gold. They would put gold in the water, and we were also enslaved by certain Anunnaki in order to mine it for them, because they needed it as well, and they took it off planet. That is how the story goes. Paper money was originally paper money were bad English there. Paper money was originally gold certificates for gold held. So they didn't want to carry the gold around, so they issued certificates. And this is how we ended up getting paper money. 100% silver was used to make up the coins. You certainly don't see that anymore. Banks were born out of the need for storage of the gold and silver. The landholders were often the richest people, and this is where the royals came in. So the royals, they created their own inversion of royalty. I might add that there is actually a kingship in true spirituality, but that, like everything, has been subverted. So when people think of the royal family, you think, what a bunch of thieving idiots, or you may not have a very good view of them, or you might be a royal lover. But whatever, it is not the true royalty that what it was supposed to be. Kinship was totally different. So royalty was their way. The royalty we have now was their way of preserving their bloodlines, creating class division as well. The law of the king controlled the money. So the king controlled the money. He controlled the land. Therefore, he controlled the money, and everything went with the king. And that is one of the two prime pillars in the system matrix. And the legal system is the other one, which was controlled by the priest. And I think I mentioned that in the next slide. So the legal system, law, and nature's law. The legal, again, so really what they're doing is they're taking natural law and they're making their own man-made law out of true a true universal law. So the legal law system is a fictional bondage system and was controlled by the priesthood. The second main pillar that they upheld. So think of the pillars and archway to their buildings. The pillars, the two main pillars, and the arch going over the top, which is a reference to our sky and the sun and its trajectory across the sky, by the way. And then they created their maritime law. So that is important, because if you're on your own land, you're kind of sovereign. If you are in their law, you're on the sea. And if you're on the sea, it's a moving sea. You are not grounded, and therefore you basically lose your energy, you lose your rights. Originally, it was called law, as I said, L-O-R-E. And when you talk about the myths of law, or the law of the ancients, or they were talking about the law of a time past and all of that's old language that we've lost, and it's just become L-A-W. But law has this L-O-R-E has a completely different connotation and context. So the meaning of laws of nature and ancient stories pointing to the truth. That's what really law is. Lawful honors the living being and their rights. Lawful as in common law. Hermetic laws became the heretics. So if you were upholding knowledge, or you were following Hermes, this is where the word heretic came from. And so that's like, if you've been called a racist today, we're the heretics. If you are going against the predominant mainstream, you will be called a racist, or you'll be called a misogynist, or you'll be called all these other names. It is just like the modern day heretic. Hermes was also Thoth and Poseidon. These were immortal beings, and they came in from age to age to help humanity. The 10 Commandments in the Bible are the original laws, L-O-R-E, basis of common law. Do no harm is the maxim, as said by Hippocrates. So everything is inverted in order to create the matrix. So basically, God is, has become a dirty word. So instead of they will talk in terms of God, but what they really mean is the opposite. Everything is whatever is portrayed in the world. Their meaning is actually opposite, but they can't come out and say that. So what they do is they act by pretending that they are one thing when they're actually the opposite. And if you really look, you will see this everywhere. So don't take my word for it. This is just my truth. They installed themselves as gods versus the one universal creator. And I just said the one universal creator. I didn't say God at the end for a reason, because the word God has just been so misaligned. But there is a creator, and there is only one. But they have confused us by creating all these false gods. The word God has been subverted, as I said. The Pope is, in fact, in disguise. There is also a black Pope that people don't even know about. He's the one who's really controlling the show. But the white Pope, if you like, he's also, this is all show. It's all like a theatre show. As hybrids of the original Earthcomers and starseeds, we have immense creative powers. However, they are largely latent. So it's basically been conditioned out of us, but they are there. They are there because our ancestors are those original hybrid beings. The Nephilim are our truest ancestors. We all came out of them, or we came to Earth from another star constellation, and for reasons only known to our soul, but we came here basically, I think, to experience life as in a 3D in a 3D Earth, so that we can then truly rise from the absolute base, from base level. To know thyself has become distorted to feed thy ego self. Knowledge, science, and religion, divine energy, have become divided when in fact they are different sides of the same coin. When you really delve into science, and you delve into quantum science and the field and true energy, and then when you look at religion, or not religion really, religion's obviously the superficial side. What religion is supposed to represent, they are the same. They are absolutely the same. They meet in the middle. So it's as above, so below. Everything that's above in the heavens is happening down on earth, and there's many variations of that. Like like I say, the temples down here mirroring the heavens, but the same energy that's here on earth and in us is also the same energy that's at the farthest reaches of the universe. So war, what is it good for? War is simply a money-making machine, playing both sides to divide, using all the systems of economy, science, religion, politics, and law, etc. War leaves a scarring effect that lasts for generations. We have this thing called catastrophism, and trauma, deep trauma, stays in our genetic bodies, and then it carries over to the next generation. This is why we have to heal ourselves completely at a genetic level. And another reason why certain things are happening on the earth now to prevent us from actually doing that. Silent wars are now favored over hot wars. So they're kind of ditching their bombs and planes and tanks, and now it's become a silent war. War shields the powers that be, and it ensures they claim most of the money and the world's resources. So whenever there's been a war, they basically then just steal everything, and they start again and build another empire. Operation Paperclip is now playing out today as technology developed since World War II, and I'd say before World War II, is staggering in its advancement, and it is ready to be unleashed, or it's ready to be unveiled as well. Our history is a timeline that's about to split in two. I'm just going to stop and see how I'm doing for time. Okay, good. 5. It is said, if we know where we have been, we can know where we're going. And history always repeats. Or sometimes we hear the saying, history doesn't always repeat, but it does rhyme. That means what the saying is, it does actually repeat, but with slight variations from age to age. So if we truly know our history and where we have been, then clearly where we are going is going to be a completely different to where it is actually looking at the moment. If we don't know our illustrious history and our greatness and our creativity and our true majesticness, we'll never aspire to be that. It's basically quite simple when you think about it. So I think that is true until now. I think now we are rewriting history. We have the opportunity to rewrite history. And as we do so, we rewrite our future. So our future depends on the history that we adhere to. So if we are going to just completely believe all the lies that we have been fed, well, our future will be much of the same. But if we start to wake up and realize our history is something completely different, then we are going into a completely different future. And I believe that is what's creating the split in realities. Our false history was not just created to deceive in the present. It was created to keep history and therefore keep people controlled into the future. All language, history, science, etc., is predictive programming. Basically, that's what it is. However, timelines are now splitting into two, and we have a choice now to decide which future we would like based upon our consciousness, truth, frequency, energy, and understanding who we are. Oops, went a bit too far. So now, creating the new earth, entering a new age of enlightenment. So this time now is the greatest time in history for thousands of years to make a break from the matrix, because time, i.e. large cycles and movement in space of our solar system, is on our side. We are moving into the age of Aquarius now, and that represents a completely different kind of energy. It's based on humanity and inventions that assist humanity and getting thinking back into proper creative thought. Time is not linear, based on the clock, although the clock is simply a measurement for convenience. That's all it really is. Ultimately, it does not exist. However, we need the measurement of these cycles, 60 seconds, 12, 24 hours, as I've sort of alluded to before. And then we've got minutes, days, years, and ages, and the precession of the equinoxes in order to know where we are in our solar and galactic cycles. So if we follow the sun and its rise and fall, if we honor the equinoxes and the solstices, then we will come into natural time. There is a natural timing to everything. And if we align ourselves with that kind of time, then we'll always know where we are and we'll know who we are as well. And by the way, time is also space. As we are moving through space, we are also moving through time. They're one and the same coin as well. Another sort of duality that's actually a singularity once you understand both sides. We are at the end of a large cycle now and entering into the age of Aquarius, as I mentioned. The Last Supper is a parable about the zodiac. I mean, that to me is pretty obvious. When you decode it, there's Jesus and then there's 12 disciples. So each of the disciples is actually one of the constellations or one of the zodiac. And interesting, he's the 13th. So 13 is the real number of transcendence. 13 is the number that transcends us into another reality. So as good as 12 is, and 12 has got an amazing representation to much of the mystic kind of knowledge in that, where we have to transcend past the 12 into the 13. This time has been prophesied by our ancestors, and they, which is us, left clues for us to find now so we can transition into the next stage. So, I believe that we are essentially the ones we've been waiting for. We are the ancestors in a way. And our ancestors as us left clues for us, which we're finding now. And then as we find those clues, this is how we time travel, because we can literally then start moving out of this sort of matrix, this 3D matrix, and everything will start to become very fluid. And this is why we're going to see some crazy things happening in Earth going forward, because this is going to become more and more prominent. And I believe the Earth itself is going to have a major energy shift, and the sun is going through a major energy shift, hence why the climate is changing, but not for the reasons of CO2 or what we're told. And then comes the split in realities. So our consciousness dictates our future. It is not a one size fits all. So when I see a lot of people in fear, this is what's happening and this is going to happen, it's only going to happen for them if they truly believe it. The thing is that other people can have a different reality or a different experience based on their belief systems and where their energy level is at. Technology will play a key role. It will play a key role as a tool. It is not the be all and end all, but it can be used for bad. And this is what the powers that be will try and do. But again, it's just another inversion. Come back to the inversion again. Technology is like a hammer. You can hammer in a nail, or you could hammer someone over the head. It's really in the hands of the person. So without technology, would humans have what we have now? And if we took away all our technology and we had to survive in the wilderness, I wonder how well we would actually do. It would be an interesting exercise and thought. So people labor on about the technology and it's going to kill us and it's going to do this, that, and the other thing, but take it all away and then see how they're going to survive. I believe most advanced technology is being handed down to us from other worlds and the interdimensional travelers. And I believe that has been on Earth for a long, long time, and they don't want us to discover that either. The metaverse is an example of the split. So the metaverse is another example of a split. It's almost like a sub-split in the timeline. It's another escape. It's another kind of split that could actually serve a kind of purpose, but ultimately, I think a lot of people will get lost in the metaverse. A parallel economy on the blockchain is another type of split, and again, that could be a very beneficial. It's going to be, I believe, we will create a very beneficial split based on the blockchain. The 5D Earth awaits. The grid or galactic codes are already in place. So what I mean by that is the template for a 5D Earth or a higher vibrational Earth is already here. It's overlaid around us. We just don't yet know it, but the template is there. And so that means we just have to choose to align with it. And as more of us do that, more of us will find our way in there. And that is, to me, the ultimate. That's the ultimate universe that, or metaverse that I'd like to be in. From here, it is us people that create the history. So it is up to us now what history we create from here on in. So that is my take on history. I hope I see, because I can't see the comments because I'm sharing, but I can see there's been a few. There's been a few comments here, and it looks good. Thank you for that. I can see some people are receptive to what I'm saying. That's good. I'd love to have any more engagement. We've only got about another 10 minutes because Gerald needs to go a little bit early today. But if anyone wants to put any other questions in the chat, or it's like trying to span history. It's quite a there's massive amount of complexity and twists and turns and that. But I think that this is something that needs to be brought to the table. We need to start discussing what our true history is now, particularly at this time as we're on the cusp of a whole new reset and change in reality. I thank you, Joe. I actually really enjoy delivering that because I've been studying history quite in depth for many, many years. For about the last 20 years, I've been delving down, exploring, reading a lot, and what I've noticed is that when you start to look at all these seemingly separate areas of life, the more you go into history, the more it helped me to join those dots and of the current day. When you look at the economic system, the legal system, for example, religion, I see now how, through delving into history, how it's been sort of compartmentalized. And so we tend to get lost in one area or another. But because we don't have that bird's eye view, we don't have the big picture and the big timeline that we've come on, because we are on this timeline. We're all on this historical timeline. We lose that. We lose the thread of the timeline. And I'm sort of here wanting to bring that back into our forefront of our consciousness. And then this is where we can make sense of our economic system as well. To this whole concept of all these beliefs around money are just so out of kilter with really what a true sovereign being is supposed to be about. But that inversion has been very pervasive and very very enslaving, actually. So, people can talk about conspiracy theories. Well, I believe if we really unearthed real history, those those people calling us conspiracy theorists wouldn't have a leg to stand on. They would just see it for what it is. So, yeah. Do you want to say anything, Gerald?
Not at the moment. I'm just handling some questions. Tejas is asking how can he share it with his friends, and I was just saying, well, they can become free or paid members if they wish and watch it, or you could send them the live stream link. It's an unlisted link. So you can't find it on YouTube. You can't search for it. But the best thing is to become members and just become part of the community and build their knowledge and share knowledge and all that with us. So I think that's probably the best way for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect.
I was just going to. Oh yeah, I just needed to get the link for the membership. Yeah, just go ahead, Tony.
So Just looking back through some of the comments here, like Kim talked about the root races and the different root, the Atlanteans and the Lemurians. Lemuria actually is a fascinating subject in itself. See, Lemuria and Atlantis was created by those original interdimensionals, and they had a pact, and they would go to the four corners of the earth, and they would seed the knowledge. And it wasn't as dark and dreary as what a lot is made out. It wasn't all just war and conquest. They didn't all come here to enslave us and to turn us into mining slaves. Like I said, Enki, they just came here as they had to follow universal law as well. So that's why Enki was here, is to hold the light. Yes, he was a geneticist, but I believe he was genetically modifying us to make us better in many ways. But obviously there were other beings that had a different view, and maybe they had some experiments that maybe didn't go right. But Enlil, we have to have the dark. I mean, we wouldn't exist. We wouldn't have a world, and we wouldn't have anything. So Enlil had to exist. So this is the great play. This is the great theatre playing out of how to meld light and dark, how to integrate light and dark, and to understand why war and destructive things happen on the earth. They don't just happen because it's not just the Rothschilds and the Rockefeller. Although we need to take these guys out. I think they need to be dealt to, but they've got karma coming. But they're not the ones who are controlling this. Ultimately, they are being controlled themselves, and then there's beings that are controlling them that are controlled. It goes right up to other nefarious interdimensionals that are interfering, I believe, with our Earth now. I believe there are many, many benign and beautiful intergalactic races, but there are also dark ones. And this, as above, so below. There's a war happening here. There's a war happening in the universe right now as well. Probably many wars. So we have to sort of get out of this victimhood, and this is what another thing I found with history. It helped me by seeing the big picture. It started to take away all that, well, us and them, and look what they're doing to us, and I'm a victim and all of that, which, I went through all of that. And then I realized, no, that we chose to be here, and this is the greatest place to be in the universe. This is the greatest show on earth. So, I just think that we have to elevate our thinking up into this level, and then we can get on with the business of what we're doing here, and why we're here and stuff like that. And then we've got space in our minds, we've got energy to be able to think straight instead of going around in circles, worried about the next bogeyman. Even though there's some horrendous things happening on Earth, and there's going to be a lot of human anguish and pain, and I don't condone. I'm not here to condone that. I'm not spiritual bypassing in this. I'm totally acknowledge that, and we need to act as humans in the right manner, and we have to do things to put a stop to this madness. But at the same token, we can still have our mind on these other matters about causes and why are we here and why is this actually happening. So it's about asking questions. To me, it's just about having good questions. Eventually, you'll get the good answers, because our soul and spirit has to answer a sincerely asked question. Anyways, that's probably pretty much about it for today. So thank you for coming and listening. I appreciate it greatly, as always.
Yeah, that was a great presentation, Tony. I think
Thank
people
you.
loved it there. I loved it. Yeah,
Oh, good.
great.
Yeah, excellent. Well, it makes something a bit different, I guess.
A little bit different from our usual stuff we see on the mainstream. Yeah, true.
Anyway, I suppose that's good. It needs to be. Sometimes we need to present these things so that makes people think.
Hmm.
And it makes me think too, because when
Yeah.
doing the research, I learned so much more
Sure. Yeah.
about, oh, wow, I didn't see that before. Anyways, thanks for coming. I'll let you get on with your event, Gerald, and I will get on with my other
Yeah.
jobs.
Thanks a lot, people. And yeah, we've got a great session on Monday.
Oh, yes.
Please try to make it on Monday. Last Wednesday we didn't have so many people, and we had a guest speaker, and yeah, some of us were a little bit disappointed at the turnout. So please try and make it on Monday. Neil Morrison, the Evo Rich leader of New Zealand, or one of the leaders, is coming to tell us the really time sensitive news about what's happening with Evo Rich and the Crew token. And yeah, it's really interesting news, and I think you'll find it exciting, and it'll help you put together the pieces of the Evo Rich puzzle, because I know that for a lot of you, you're wondering, what is Evo Rich? It's so big, it's so complex. So what we're going to do over the next few weeks is to bring the pieces, present the pieces to you, so that eventually you can bring the puzzle together. And once you put the puzzle together, I think you'll be really blown away by the potential. So Monday, Neil is going to give an overview from his point of view as someone who's been in Evo Rich for since 2014, or for 4 years, or for 4 years. He's been in it for 4 years, and he's
No,
very
he's been in it. No, he's
no,
been in it for 6 years, since 2016.
2016, yes. And he's very close to he's in contact with the people who are the founders and the developers of this whole system, the brains behind this system. And so he will be able to give us, the just firsthand, if not, secondhand, if not firsthand knowledge of what Evo Rich is about, and also about this time sensitive news that is going to roll out over next week. And if you want to take advantage of that, there will be lots of you can get quite large gains from it if you are interested in it. So yeah, make it Monday 4:00, and we'll give you the details.
Yeah, and it's not just for existing Evo Rich members, it's for anyone as well,
Yeah.
because you can jump on board.
Yeah.
There is a golden opportunity, a golden window
Yes.
that's going to exist for
Yeah.
about a week and a half, and then it will be over.
Yeah.
But we'll go into the details of that. But it is a fantastic opportunity. It
Yeah.
doesn't come along that often.
Yeah. So in fact, it's normally a premium webinar on Monday, but we've decided to make it open to everyone. So bring your friends, bring anyone, and we'll put out the details, and you can watch it on Facebook or on YouTube. Yeah. Look forward to seeing you there. So in the meantime, have a fantastic weekend. And yeah, thanks a lot, Tony. And yeah,
Thanks, Gerald.
Thanks
Thanks
being
everyone.
here today. Bye.
Yeah. See you. Bye.